Old Ben Moore Kenobi back from the Dune Sea. You were
Right.
gone. You were gone for a week.
Back at the homeland,
Back at the.
the great Midwest, Iowa. Yeah.
But right before you left, you submitted a review of the final chapter, chapter 5 of Cry Wolf, of The Wolf Among Us, and you super dug it. It was like an emotional journey reading all of your scripts, Ben, because you clearly you loved everything that they've done so far. I call these guys out on Twitter as the Coen brothers of game making, because like everything they do is amazing. Like all the stuff that they've released lately has been really great, and they had their ups and downs in the season, but you liked it overall. And Elise, you checked it out as well. So Wolf Among Us, it's over. I think that'll be the only non-spoilerific talk that we'll have during this whole conversation, I'm assuming.
Probably.
Should we
less
just throw up the
spoilers.
grand spoiler alert right now? I'm definitely going to mention it in the headline image.
Definitely. With the game so heavily reliant on stories, The Wolf Among Us, it's really hard to have any meaningful Oh, sorry, I'm having like severe neck pain right now. So if I make any weird movements, please forgive me. So sorry, this is really awkward.
That's gonna be a good nap.
Yeah. So my biggest thing with The Wolf Among Us is I liked it. As Brandon said, I think it's great overall, and I'm really glad that I played it. And I think people that enjoyed The Walking Dead or enjoy, the direction that Telltale is going with their games should check it out. But not as consistent maybe as I would have liked it to be. I don't know. How did you feel about it overall?
Overall, I thought it was a great noir. I thought that in terms of story, it gives you insight into Fabletown and that whole universe. As a fan of the comics, there were issues I had in terms of continuity. Just kind of, where Snow and Bigby's relationship is left off at the end of this prequel, you kind of get the impression they had so much more depth to their relationship than it seems at the beginning of the novels. So that kind of irks me as a fan a little bit.
So ultimately, this was a prequel going into the first issue?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that was a totally different perspective than I had. I was aware of the Fables comic series, but I had never actually read them. What were the inconsistencies that you noticed?
Their relationship primarily, just because at the beginning of the comics there's like so much more animosity between them, and it seems like they don't really know each other that well, and so that bothered me. There were a bunch of characters that we saw, but a lot of the really great characters like Bloody Mary and the Woodsman, and we don't see them at all in the comics, or at least and I read like 100 issues, so I don't know if they're maybe introduced now that the game's over, but it was nice. It was a nice nod to fans that you saw like Flycatcher in the hall, the janitor, but I could have done with a little bit more integration, I guess, between the worlds.
Would it have been a huge fail if they tried to make something separate? If they were like, we're going to take the Fables characters and we're going to tell not our own story, but like, don't sweat if anything doesn't match up, because we're just kind of making our own kind of like split universe off what's already been done in the comics? Or would you have preferred that they actually stuck to the lore as they seem to have tried to?
I love that they stuck to the lore, because as a fan, this is the game that I, to a degree wanted them to make, and I wasn't disappointed.
I don't really have any experience with the comics, but as a fan of anything, it always really bothers me when another creator dismisses everything that's been done before outright. Like, we're gonna do this in the same style that you did it, but we're gonna completely ignore all of that hard work and love that you put into it. I understand that you have to do it in some instances, but I don't know. It just comes across as arrogant sometimes, I think.
They're generally respectful.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched your review yet, but I was seeing everybody across the internet giving it like 9s, 9.5s.
For episode 5?
For episode 5 in the full series. You were more in like the 8 range. Do you still feel justified in your score?
I actually think, a confession, I might have given episode 5 a little bit too high. Oh. I might have given it a little bit too high. Not much. Like, I would maybe have done like a 0.2 difference. It's not like super crazy significant, but I think episode 5 is good, but I have some huge issues with it, and maybe you don't.
What are your issues?
I feel like episodes 3 and 4 and 2 were all like pretty short, like around an hour and a half, but it felt like they were cramming way too much in. in that finale, and a lot of it felt rushed. A lot of it didn't feel finished. It should have been longer. I think episode 1, which was the longest episode of the season, was the most well-paced and therefore the most interesting, I think. It's still my favorite episode of the entire season.
Episode 1 is a very, very noir-feeling episode compared to the rest of them, which I like too. I really, really wanted to play the game and come in here and be like, Ben, you're wrong. You're wrong. But I kind of thought episode 5 was a little bit of a letdown too for a lot of those reasons, though I did think the Big B Bloody Mary battle was excellent.
Yes. I think the Big B Bloody Mary battle at the end, I mean, is so well done because in episode 3, Bloody Mary is introduced and she just completely destroys Big B. Big B, up until this point, had been kind of like the dominant force. He can turn into this giant wolf and absolutely shred people to bits. But you see this villain who like doesn't want to do anything other than cause pain, like completely fracture his arm, and just in the next episode he's getting patched up by a doctor, something we don't normally see from Big B. And then episode 4 she causes more havoc, and finally in the final episode you get this huge climactic battle. I said in my review, like, it felt like a spectacle, and it really did. It was so well done and so well presented. Like, Bloody Mary transforms into like all of these different versions of herself, and she's got like jagged pieces of mirrors in her skin, which she pulls off and uses to stab Big B. Like, it's really great.
And it's Big B Unleashed. Like, for me personally, the entire series, I was just waiting for Big B to like wolf out to the full extent he could.
Wolf out, I love that.
and I was not disappointed, and it was actually really, really great. Like, action sequence coordination as far as Telltale goes. Like, I was not expecting like that. I don't know how you felt about the mechanics, but I wasn't like, oh, this is, lame. I felt like I was doing something.
Yeah, and that's actually something I want to bring up as well. I always felt like the action scenes, I guess, for lack of a better term, in The Walking Dead were always kind of, whatever. Like, when people were talking about moments in The Walking Dead, it was never the parts where you were shooting or like stabbing zombies. Those were never the moments. But I feel like The Wolf Among Us, every single time they went all out, it was really fantastic. They've gotten better for sure.
So, Game of Thrones is next. Something they could maybe introduce in Game of Thrones. So, like, obviously having more combat, people who prove themselves in the, in the lands of Westeros is like, I'm a good archer, I am a good swordsman, I'm a strong man, I can do magic, like, is that something that they can, you think that they've learned maybe from Wolf Among Us? And I think that's the interesting thing about seeing, them develop. It's kind of, what did they learn from Walking Dead that they put in Wolf Among Us? What did they learn from Wolf Among Us that they're putting in episode 2 of Walking Dead? What did they learn in episode or season 2 of Walking Dead that they're going to now put into Game of Thrones? What do you want to see Telltale get better at, Ben? What do you think they still could get better at potentially?
I think one of the biggest and most obvious things is both myself and I've read a lot of people still having technical problems with some of the episodes. I think they got better with it as the season went on, from my personal experience. But, there are times when the game will crash, or there'll be weird like audio sync issues, or just a bunch of technical hiccups all around that were prevalent in season 1 of Walking Dead and prevalent also in season 1 of Wolf Among Us. I hope that when Tales from the Borderlands comes out, like, this isn't a thing anymore. They've gotten better at it already, but I hope that just continues. The other thing I think is pacing, kind of as we hinted at. There were some episodes of The Wolf Among Us where I felt like for long stretches of time, like, nothing really significant happened, or times where they had a significant thing, but they didn't really give it enough time to breathe. It felt like it was a little rushed. So those are my 2 things.
I'm like, no changes to story whatsoever. Telltale is knocking it out of the park for me. The game mechanics I can deal with because that's not what I'm playing these games for. I'm not going into them, I think, for an exceptional play experience, more for the story. I would love Telltale, though. I know that they need time to make these games and they're looking for user feedback, but I would love a more regular release schedule.
Definitely.
Like, I think this took 9 months for everything to come out, right? All 5 episodes. If it was once a month, like, it's just, there are parts where, they're referencing back to something that happened in episode 2 and I have no long-term memory and I'm like, I don't even remember saying that. Like, it loses its impact. That's
an interesting point. That's actually why I haven't played any of the Wolf Among Us. I didn't play any of the Walking Deads until they were done, and then I burned through all 5 of them, in a week. maybe that's why we're getting the technical hiccups, because even the
Definitely.
slow schedule that they have is maybe tough for them to to meet, and kind of makes me a little bit nervous that they're doing Borderlands, they're doing Game of Thrones. It's like maybe they're biting off more than they could chew.
Are you going to be able to wait to play Game of Thrones?
I'm really excited about that. I'm very curious. But again, we were talking about the prequel thing leading into Fables. Like, what is it? How does it take place? I'm assuming it links to the show, but like, are they going to retell events and then goof around with stuff? I would love that, because there's the decision making, but it's like the show's ongoing. So if you're going to have me talk to people and then give me decisions, can I kill someone that then will appear on the show later and mess up the chronology that way? I'd love that. That'd be great.
And I think that's what happened to Fables is like, or Wolf Among Us, is they took whatever liberties they could, like within the parameters that they had. And they obviously didn't want to ruin continuity, so they couldn't go that far. But if they had been able to go much further, it might have been different, and the problems with lag that you've talked about and story and things like that might have been, non-existent. But.
It maybe at least disagrees with me, but I still think season 1 of The Walking Dead is the best thing that Telltale has done, in my opinion. And I have to wonder if, when they were working on The Walking Dead, it sort of felt like that was it. Like, that was, in season 1 at least, that was their big game, and they were putting all of their energy into it. And I feel like playing Wolf Among Us season 1 and Walking Dead season 2 simultaneously, like, it's still really good. It's still exceptional storytelling in a lot of instances. But I feel like, what if they weren't working on two things at once? Would I get that feeling that I got from season 1 of Walking Dead? And I worry, as they take on even more projects, that it's going to be too much.
I worry too, and I will read that worry. I will sense that worry when you write these scripts. The first paragraph of the next review of Wolf Among Us will be like, I was worried that they were going to. But we will see. Yeah, lots coming from these guys in the future too, so lots more to enjoy. But thank you for both checking it out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Someone's gonna see you, Colin.